Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, let's see what's happening to start off this week, of course, and yeah, let's just see what we can make of it. So as usual, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button, it does help quite a bit. And as usual, none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, this is all purely for entertainment, and do your own research, all that stuff yourself. But all that being said and done, guys, the market's closing in just a couple of minutes or so, with Tesla outperforming the market a pretty respectable amount today, up about 2.5%, we'll say, which is closing us at around $194 and about 50 cents roughly, we'll say. So not a bad day for Tesla at all. Now, what does this all mean, right? Where is this taking us? Like, it's pushing, and it's doing some things that are making me question whether or not it could actually maybe go over 200. But ultimately, there's still, of course, a lot of other things to look at as well. So we'll go over all that right here, right now. So first and foremost, you can see Tesla is finally closing a candle above this 100-day moving average, which is this kind of yellow line right here, right? We got rejected by 2 times in a row, and it was looking decently bearish, and it's still not looking amazing. However, the fact that we are able to close up in this vicinity now and above this 100-day moving average isn't too shabby, right? That to me tells me that there is still some strength clearly left in Tesla, but there are of course other things to be kind of cautious of. So now this isn't enough in my opinion, but it's definitely making me start to, I guess, really question whether or not it actually has the strength, I guess, left to go above 200. Let's just say that, right? So because of this, this situation to go above 200 has risen, I guess, higher. The percentage has increased in my head personally. However, with that being said and done, there's a few things to keep in mind. So first and foremost, we are still ultimately getting the ultimate rejection pretty much very close to 200. You can see the top today was about 198, right? Clearly got another massive rejection as we did here, and today as we did again. So we're still having a lot of issues in the upper half of the 190s, right? The 195 to 200, right? Clearly, there's still a substantial amount of selling pressure and resistance essentially in that vicinity. So until we can clear that and start closing candles above 200, forget about it, right? It's ultimately it's much more bearish than bullish here until we see a closure above 200. And if that were to happen, specifically candle closures, then you can start talking about, okay, now how much higher can we actually go? But until then, I still don't believe that we will go over 200. However, like I said, closing above the 100-day moving average, which it seems like we're about to do, and up in this vicinity, which we haven't before over here, is a good start. Is a good start for the bulls to still, somehow miraculously find even more strength left in the stock before we finally get an actual downturn, which we will. I promise you, 100% it'll happen. It's just a matter of when, not if, right? However, with that being said, the bearish things is the fact that, like I said, so we are, of course, still getting that rejection. If we go over to, let's say, the 1 hour or even the 30-minute chart, right, you can see we are essentially in two different, channels, if you will, almost, right? So the first channel is this one right here, the yellow line's going straight up, like northeast, if you will. Where, I would personally be very closely watching this, right? Until this breaks out of one of these two situations, I'll be, very cautious, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, almost a 4 touch point down here. And then we'll see if this bounces off this 4 here, because the one option that I see here is that it bounces like this and then goes up and then goes down like this. That's one option. Option 2 is that it pretty much kind of, more or less does whatever from here. Maybe it goes up one more time, maybe it doesn't, whatever. But ultimately, it just pretty much from this general vicinity right here, below 200, it falls down and goes south from there, right? Which one plays out is still the question. And that's why you want to be very patient with these situations and not rush to conclusions, I guess, if that makes sense, right? So that's very important to consider. On top of that, you can see we're also within this little small kind of, wedge, if you will, right here, this kind of smaller 2 yellow lines that I have within the major overall ascending wedge that we are in, right? So this right here, you can argue is like a very mini bull flag, right? So we kind of, you can make an argument that it is kind of from, maybe from here, right? Maybe it's from here, right? You can argue it's one of those two things for sure. And that would give this push up to the top part of this ascending wedge one more time, which will pretty much take us to about $210, right? That is definitely a possibility. So if we break 200, I definitely think 210 is absolutely in the cards. And then of course, we'll see what happens from there. And and 220 is like the highest, but that's assuming 200, of course, breaks. So you definitely want to see tomorrow, especially, we will find out which way this little kind of, situation that we found ourselves in right here will play out. Now, I drew this before we even had this tap right here. And back when it was like back over here is when I made these lines, and you can see it's following it quite well because it went up, touched the top part, came back down, touched the bottom part, and it bounced off of both of those respectively, of course, and it's still kind of, undecided, if you will. However, with that being said and done, we are having a bearish divergence on the, let's say, 1 hour, 30-minute, whatever, more or less the same thing in this case, where essentially, as you can see, as the stock is making its way from here, as it's going essentially northeast, right, up and to the right, you can see the RSI from this exact point right here is absolutely not doing that, right? It is doing the complete opposite. That is a bearish divergence. So as the stock is making higher highs, higher lows, the RSI is essentially making lower highs and not necessarily lower lows, but pretty damn close to it. But more importantly, lower highs, while this is making higher highs. That's the most important part to consider. So that is, of course, a bearish divergence on the roughly 1 hour time frame, right? Give or take 30 minutes, maybe even the 2 hour or whatever. But the point is that the bearish divergence is absolutely setting up. So we'll see if this actually plays out. But even though this is in, of course, consideration here, I still wouldn't be surprised if we do potentially come up all the way as high as 210 to the top of that yellow ascending channel that we are in. And then I believe the RSI won't go that much higher. I believe the RSI will probably just go up here, probably make essentially another lower high ultimately. So that we have this high right here, then we have this lower high, and then maybe make another lower high like this, right? Which will, of course, be if we go up to 210. So that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, right? That is absolutely still in the cards, and I'm not counting that out whatsoever. So we'll see, of course, if that happens to come into fruition. But that's essentially the main thing that I'm personally looking out for the next honestly, this week, I would say that's probably the most important thing, because I do believe this will happen this week, whether we go up to 210 first, or we just simply get rejected at 200. We don't go much higher than this, and we just simply fall back down out of this ascending wedge, which is also a very real possibility. It's very hard to say which one it is, which is why you want to be waiting for confirmations. Very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the main thing I'm looking at here. You can also see SPY is being a little finicky, right? You can see it's it's being weird. It's being a little bit weird, right? You can see it fell back into this wedge. It kind of came almost to the bottom of it, but it's also closing below 410, but just barely. So it's not like that convincing. So SPY is very undecided at the very moment as to where it wants to go. But of course, if SPY also just has to fall out of this wedge, similar to Tesla over here, you can see, right, very similar situation they find themselves in, that will play out very similarly, right? Well, they both will essentially fall back down from both of these bad boys right here, these ascending wedges, right? So we'll see where that actually plays out. Now, the good thing for the bulls is the fact that on the daily, not really a bearish divergence setting up on the daily RSI. That is a pretty decent sign for the bulls for Tesla. That's not too shabby. So that's a pretty, that's pretty good. Let's just say that. The bulls definitely want to see this a lot more than they want to see a bearish divergence. We'll just, say that right there. So that's important to keep in mind. On top of that, we also have short squeezes happening across the board, AMC, GME, especially Bed Bath & Beyond. And the fact that this is happening is a little concerning for the markets, because usually when these kind of things happen with these short, meme stocks, if you will, the markets usually tend to be unhappy about that almost, right? So just keep that in mind as well going forward, ladies and gentlemen. But ultimately, that's kind of what I'm seeing as of right this very moment. So let me know what you think down below. Again, in my opinion, if you want to have a TLDR situation here, I personally think that Tesla's not worth trading as of right this very moment. Trading specifically, obviously, right? Trading as of this very, very moment, just my opinion, mainly because it's in a bit of a limbo land right now, where it can really go either way. In all honesty, I know it's like a meme where it's like, oh, so it can go up or down, but it absolutely can in this case, right? And until you get confirmations that I just talked about, whether it's a break above 200 or a break below and out of this ascending wedge that we have and find ourselves in here, I personally wouldn't be touching this thing in terms of an actual trade, like a short-term especially trade. I would be waiting for those kind of confirmations personally, but that's just my opinion. Of course, do with it what you will. That is not my concern. What you decide to do with your money, that is completely yours. And the final thing I'll talk about very briefly is the VIX, which is still bouncing around in this channel, and it's definitely looking for a way to kind of break out of this channel, which it's so far not finding, but I do strongly believe it will very soon. This is more of a bullish technical pattern than it is a bearish one, where more often than not these kind of patterns bounce and zigzag within it, and then ultimately more or less break up to the upside more often than not. So I would not be surprised if this actually ends up essentially doing that right there. But all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, that is about it for this video. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.